So it's been a while since I last gave an update on the Joshua Tree property. And if you need a refresher, in the spring of last year, I decided to buy a piece of land out in the desert in Joshua Tree, California, and build a small home to turn it into an Airbnb. Originally in 2021, I had decided to buy a home in Seattle, Washington, where I live. But after giving this some thought and considering the rising house prices, I decided this wasn't really the way that I wanted to invest my savings right now. So I decided to stay in my apartment in Seattle, and I pivoted pretty hard. A few weeks later, I found myself out in the desert in California, touring through different vacant properties. After about a day of searching, I decided to just put in an offer on a piece of land that I saw out there, and this was actually quickly rejected. I think that the landowner actually wasn't looking to sell it. I think they had intended to build on it themselves, but for some reason it was listed in the market. I really liked the neighborhood though that I saw that piece of land in. It was up on a hill and had a great view of the valley, so I tried to find something else in the same neighborhood, and I got lucky and there was something else available. So I put in an offer on that, I think the next day, and that went through. About a month later, I found myself the owner of about 3/4 of an acre in the desert. I'm a first-time home buyer, so this was a pretty intimidating process. I've never worked with a realtor before, so I did a lot of Googling and really tried to do my due diligence to make sure that this land was buildable and was something that wasn't going to be a bad investment. Fortunately, everything looked good, at least from what I could tell, so I continued on with the buying process. If you want to know more about this process, I recommend checking out one of the videos that I posted previously where I talked about what I was thinking as I was going through this. Before I go any further, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who's reached out to me in support of this channel and in support of this journey. I really appreciate your kindness and your curiosity and your questions. My channel is pretty small and I really didn't expect anyone to watch this at all, so I really appreciate you guys coming along for the journey. Always feel free to reach out and hit me up with a DM on Instagram or post a comment because I love hearing what you guys are thinking for your own property ideas, and I like sharing my experience as well. Anyways, getting back to it, so I bought the land in June of 2021 and today is January 29th. 2022. A lot has happened in the time since I bought the land, but actually, to be honest, a lot hasn't happened as well. I think the number one question that I get from friends and family is, has construction started yet? And you would think after 8 months that this would have, but it turns out no. A lot actually goes into getting a property ready for construction and before you can even break ground. So in the beginning of this project, I was really unsure about how to kick things off, and I tried getting a loan and getting all of the financial aspects in order. I tried getting a contractor and reaching out to somebody who would be able to guide me through the process a bit more, and I kept running into dead ends in both of those directions. A lot of times people didn't even want to talk to me because my building that I was trying to build hadn't been permitted yet by the city. So I realized in order to get the permits, I needed to have house plans, and in order to have house plans, you need to have a draftsman or an architect. And so this is really the first stage in the process once you have your land, and that's where I decided to go next. I found myself a draftsman and we began working through everything. From here, this is probably over the summer. Midsummer, I had a draftsman, so I bought the property in June, and then I'd say by maybe July or August, I was contracting with a draftsman. And the first thing we did is hire a surveyor to map the land. This brought us to our first set of problems, which is, one, the land is on a slope and there's about 5 million Joshua trees on the property. Joshua trees are protected by the city, so you can't tear them down, or if you do, you have to go through a whole process and get permits to tear them down or move them. And then the icing on the cake was I found out my lot is on a corner, and so the city is actually taking huge chunks of my land on either side of the road to build a bigger road. So right now the road is unpaved, and they're gonna come through and pave the road at some point in the future, and so they have to build into my property, I think about 40 feet on one side and 30 feet on the other. The lot to begin with isn't that big, and given the Joshua trees that are on the property, it made for a like very, very small specific spot that my draftsman and I had to find that we could actually build on. So at the same time, I also hired a septic company to run what's called a percolation test on the property and then begin the septic process. And I hired them in the late summer, and I'm still waiting for them to finish their preliminary work. They're incredibly frustrating to deal with and incredibly slow. So if you are trying to go through this process, I recommend getting the septic and the survey process kicked off as quickly as possible, because these have been pretty much where all of the time suck has come from. They have a lot of backlog and they're really slow to get to new projects. So in the meantime, while we were waiting for all of this to go through, we had to get a few pieces in place first, like the map of the land called the topography. But once we got that, my draftsman and I started designing the house, and this was, I think, in November of 2021. So the process was pretty much back and forth, where I would tell my draftsman what I wanted to build, and then he would build it into an architect program and share with me the plans. So if you work with a draftsman, you should come prepared with your own ideas and a design already in your head, or maybe some designs that you can send over to them. Unlike an architect, a draftsman will take a more practical approach to everything and design what you tell them to design. So I don't have a ton of experience in this process outside what I've done so far, but it's my understanding an architect might come to the table with more design ideas, whereas a draftsman is going to rely on you to provide those ideas. The benefit of a draftsman, though, is that they're cheaper. Because this is my first project, I'm really trying to keep it on a tight budget. It was important to me that I find somebody that was within my budget. To be honest, it's been really great and I have no regrets with it. So in December, we finished the house plans, and now in January, we are waiting for the arborist to sign off on the location of the house and its proximity to the Joshua trees on the lot. And then we're also waiting for an engineer to add the technical specs to the architecture that's already been mapped out. So once this wraps up, we'll send the topography that the surveyors did, the house plans that my draftsman has done, the arborist approval, the septic plans, and then the water company's will to serve letter, all to the city for permitting. And I'm really, really hoping, fingers crossed, that this happens in February, because then from there I can find a contractor and start getting estimates for the house build and find a loan from a financial officer. And this will be when the fun really kicks off and we can actually see the real progress. So a lot has happened in 10 months, but I also feel like most people would have expected the construction to have started. The reality is the permitting process is long and there's a lot of backlog in Joshua Tree to get contractors like the surveyors and the septic company to actually come and work with your property. This is just the reality of Joshua Tree. There's a lot of interest in building out there right now. I don't think it means that you shouldn't do it. I just think that you should come with the practicality of it all in your head. I'm still really enjoying the process and I have zero regrets about my choice, but I just want to make sure everyone is aware of the reality of building a house. It might take you 2 years to actually do it, and if it's your first time, it might take you longer as you're trying to understand how the process actually works, because nobody's going to hold your hand through the whole thing. There are definitely times when I wonder if I should have just bought a house as a fixer-upper, because that would have been ready by now, and I don't own any Airbnbs currently, so the thought of spending 2 years building something and then it not being successful really sits in the back of my head. But if this was easy and if you knew the exact plans of the future, then everyone would do it, and that's just not the case. In the end, I think I'll have a pretty cool house and a great place for guests to come and enjoy, and I'm really happy and excited for that. All right, that was a lot to go through. Hopefully this was interesting and helpful to you and answers some of the questions of what I've been doing for the last few months since I haven't been able to put an update out on YouTube. I really love these videos and I want to do more. So if you have a specific topic in mind, something that you want to know about, or something that you want me to go more in depth on, let me know in the comments below or send me a DM on Instagram so I can hear your idea. I'd like to do a virtual walkthrough to show you the house plans that I designed, or I can talk about the financial investment that I've made so far into this property. But I only want to share things that are interesting to you, so if these are, let me know and I'll be sure to make these types of videos. Thanks for joining me on this journey. I'm still getting started on YouTube, so if you enjoyed this video, please let me know by subscribing or giving this video a like. I really appreciate your support. I'll see you in the next one.